Hi everyone. Recently, one of my clients who's just had a second child, and the older one is just a couple of years old. She brought up an issue she's got with setting and keeping her boundaries around what's okay and what's not okay when it comes to the children, in relation to other people. So she had family visiting and friends coming over, and you know, people kind of just do what they like and not always respecting her decisions around how she wants the children to be handled, and around childcare and parenting and so forth. So she asked me how to set clear boundaries, but also how to kind of present it so she doesn't push friends and family away or doesn't have to cut them off. She wants to maintain those other relationships while manage their expectations and manage the boundaries that she needs to set. It's definitely a challenging one, especially around really close people like family, especially our parents. We've already, when we become new to this, it's already quite triggering situation. And it's vulnerable place to be. None of us really know what we're doing, even if it's fifth child down the road, because every child is different. So we're already in that kind of self-doubt. Am I doing enough? Am I good enough? Trying to follow intuition, trying to follow your heart, doing all the research and, doing the best you can. You always do. And then you have people coming from outside, spending 5 minutes with your kid and telling you what you should be doing and how what you're doing is already wrong. And so I'd say whatever your parenting style is, when someone comes and gives you advice to the opposite, and it's advice you didn't ask for, this is completely unsolicited, or it's a criticism, it's a judgment, sarcastic comments like, they'll never get out of your bed, you making a rod for your back, and all that bullshit over here. So when people come up with this, there are kind of different ways I deal with this. It depending on a person, so depending on my relationship, on their personality, what I feel will work best. So the first one is the OMG method. I often use with people that I barely know, or actually don't know at all, that I maybe met in some social gathering or on a tube, on a bus, because yes, people do approach you and ask you really personal questions and give you advice you never asked for. So usually, when they start giving that advice, to do something that's direct opposite of what you're already doing. So for example, I don't know, if you practice attachment parenting and they advise you to let your baby cry it out, or if you bottle feed but people keep telling you should breastfeed, and just I kind of just make like a horrified face, like, oh my god, the kind of like, how in my head what I'm saying is, oh my god, how could you even think about this? How could you suggest this? Such torture for my baby and myself. Like, how could you even? So just make that kind of face and think those thoughts in your head, because that gives the expression, the intention, and it really carries forward. And just turn around and walk away. And this is very likely to trigger a shame response in the other person, unconsciously. So it's not they're gonna think, oh, I feel ashamed. It's they will feel very uncomfortable, because we use our body language to communicate what's acceptable, not acceptable in our society, and we're very attuned to it on an unconscious level. So unless they complete psychopaths or sociopaths, they will respond to this by, what have I done? You know, like, I've done something wrong. That's what will be triggered in them, and they're unlikely to approach you on this subject again. So that's one way of doing it. Another one, that's my favorite, because it's just my personality, but I love the scientist method. So when someone starts telling me, often in length, of where I'm going wrong, I'll just bring up all the research I've done, and at great length, explain exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing, and all the newest research and advice that's been coming up, on which I'm basing my decision, as well as my intuition and my heart. And I offer to send them links to this research, and give them the books to read that I had read. So again, they usually glaze over about, you know, a few minutes in, and I know I won. And so I push it a little further, because I know that then they will never approach me on this subject again, because they don't want to be bored to death. No one likes a smart ass, and I'm the biggest smart ass out there. So yeah, they'll just drop it and leave it. Again, another one that's quite good with people you barely know or don't meet very often, the nod and smile. Yeah, let them cry to sleep, yeah, whatever, yeah, and just move on. It's just not worth your energy and time. These are good for kind of the short encounters when people just make passing comments and stuff. It's just no point getting aggravated over it. So yeah, that's quite a good one for these kind of brief encounters. And the fourth one, it's about respect. So this one, it's quite good with people that you trust, that you care about, and that you are able to be vulnerable and open with, and just simply and frankly state that you, the parent, that your, you know, methods are not subject for discussions unless you bring it up, and that, you know, you've made informed choices and you'd like them to be respected. You know, if people want shot at parenting, they can have their own kids. They have no say in your own parenting. You know, you don't have to explain or justify yourself what you're doing, as long as your child is thriving, is healthy and well, and, you know, there's obviously no abuse going on, because that definitely should be discussed and pointed out and questioned. But, you know, the kind of normal everyday parenting, and there's so many ways of doing this. It's your choice, as simple as that. You know, like, no one, as an adult, no one questions, you know, what you're eating, why you're eating, who you're sleeping with, why you're sleeping with them, and how you're sleeping with them. So what's the difference with a child? It's no one's business. It's simple as that. And when it comes to people who help with our childcare, so that's where the parents come in. That's where it can be more challenging, and hopefully have good enough, close enough relationship to be able to be just firmly state, this is how we do it, and if you want to be involved, you need to follow this, so as not to confuse the child. And if this goes wrong, it's on our head. You know, this is, if my child will end up sleeping forever in my bed, like until his 40s, it's my fault. If my child is breastfeeding until he's an adult, it's my fault. Is it likely to happen? I do not think so, but I will not complain to anyone should that happen, because it is my decision to parent the way I do. The same goes the other way around. Like, you know, if you do decide to use crying out methods, if you do decide bottle feed, although you could breastfeed, if you do decide to do whatever, it's your decision, and whatever the consequence of that, positive or negative, it's your doing. It's none of anyone's business. Unless you actually hurting your child, it's no one's business what you're doing with them, whether they agree with the method or not. So although I wouldn't want to let my child cry it out, I'm not going to criticize you for doing that. You do what you do for your reasons, based on what you know and what feels right to you and what your needs are. You also need to look after your own mental health and physical health and so forth. So whatever works for your family. It's no one else's business how you parent, and it's a shame there is quite a bit of shaming and judgment around that. Like, what I find, because I'm on lots of groups that deal with attachment parenting, gentle parenting, and so forth, and although it's something that's kind of my line of doing things, what I really don't like is how people take this higher ground. They feel that it's somehow better than people who do it differently, and they can be really harsh and judgmental of people who do things differently. And I think that's not right. There's no experts on babies, really. There isn't, because every baby is different, and no one really knows what is the best way forward. We can just experiment. We only been looking into kind of child development and stuff for really few decades. That's it. Children were never of interest. They were just something you did to part of evolution, part of preventing extension of humanity, and children were to be seen, not heard, and they were just kind of kept on a leash and stuff. It's only recently that we start to actually explore what is good for children, how to provide them with the best opportunities to grow into healthy adults, how to keep them safe, and how to nourish them properly, and all that. That's all really recent science. So we really, because you only know if it worked after that child has lived their life, and how they lived their life, and how they've been affected by the childhood, we don't have enough data for that yet. We don't, there hasn't really, the research properly only started in the 70s. Started a bit earlier than that, but in the 70s, that when it really has taken off, and it's been developing ever since, and there's been lots of errors in those trials. So we don't really have enough data right now. So let's not judge each other. Let's be kind to each other, and mind our own business. It's okay to offer advice and help when it's been asked for. I think that's important, because we all can struggle sometimes and feel doubtful or at the end of our tether. But let's not go, in and criticize people because they're doing things differently than we do. Although I understand that often the reason people criticize what other people do is because they trying to justify what they're doing, because they doubt themselves. So if you feel insecure about what you're doing, if you have any doubt that it's okay, your mind will force the evidence onto others that it is okay to convince itself. So it's quite subconscious behavior. It's not like you go on purpose and criticize and judge people. It's kind of self-protective defense mechanism that's like, I need to make sure that everyone knows I am right, so I know I am right. If there's anyone that doubts me, it means I might be wrong. And because there really is no right or wrong, it's just different perspective, it's just different way of doing things. Unless you're absolutely secure in your ways, this will be always coming up. And again, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up about it if you find yourself judging or criticizing another person, if you're doing it in your head. But if you can stop it there, if you can just tell your mind, okay, I see where what you're doing, I see where you're coming from. Let's not let it out. Let's not tell the other person what a shit job they're doing, although that's what you're thinking. Okay, unless as I said, unless there's abuse going on, unless child's being harmed, it's none of your business. And it's also none of mine. So with that, I will finish this. And the text is slightly different, so have a read. And I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye.